Hello everyone, welcome to my first how to build something tutorial, or first tutorial ever for anything, so, bear with me here, working on format. Today, I'll be showing you how to build some proportional and highly posable broadside arms out of a couple of extra bits from your Crisis kit. They'll look something like this when you're done. Lots of accessories fit with these, hands, knee pads from Crisis to fit in the elbows. Shoulder pad. I'm using plasma rifles here. I used a modified heavy rail rifle for this guy, who has same arms but with just the different shoulders. And yeah, let's get this thing started. For our arm conversion today, we are going to use the shoulders right here, which are numbers 25 and 26 of the broadside kit. And these are the ones that are normally used for the railgun. We're using these because they actually will fit some accessories better, like this large shoulder pad that's normally used. However, I have done it and it does work well. You can use the shoulders from the 38 and 39 parts, the missile glove shoulders. They give you a beefier look, but are harder to fit things over, obviously, because they are quite a bit larger. Either one will work for your upper arms, but those shoulders will be the only parts that we're using immediately for this conversion for out of the broadside kit. The other parts that we will use, and it doesn't matter which ones, anything you want out of the Crisis kit, but you'll need, as long as they're a matching pair, right, so they're not both facing the same direction, right, you get a left and a right for each. That we have the thigh armor with the little knee joint outsides, and then two arms, a left and a right arm, and what position they're in initially doesn't much matter because we will be chopping those up here shortly and reposing them however we want. These arms are very highly posable. So, as far as tools go, over here, you get the standard little clippers we use to get things out of the sprues. A hobby saw, a decent little hobby saw. It's very important here because trying to hack through these things with a hobby knife is impossible. So, hobby knife we will use, of course, quite extensively here, not just for flashing, but there are a few pieces that you have to shave down in order to get them to fit together properly. Beyond that, standard plastic glue, some green stuff we'll use. You'll see there's going to be pretty big holes in the thigh armor. There's a nice little rectangular hole, very easy to fill. Nothing fancy going on with the green stuff, just using it to fill in. You could leave it hollow if you wanted. I think it looks a little weird, so there's those. And then just some really generic poster tack that I use for posing. I didn't like it at first, but if you need it a little bit, stretch it and knead it a little bit before you apply it, it actually holds pretty decently, and all you're doing is posing. So, with no further ado, I shall get to work. Next step here is to remove the elbows from both arms. So we will, my own shadow. We will take these here off, and we will not be reusing them for this. They're neat little round parts. Keep them handy. Might find something useful for them later. Actually, I have another conversion idea we'll use those for. We'll end up using these in all three parts, the forearms, the elbows, and the upper arms separately as part of this conversion, and then, of course, the thigh armors, which will become part of the forearm and elbow. So I'm going to go ahead and start by cutting off these elbows and getting rid of them. As I'm cutting this up, I want you to be able to see how this is going together so you understand exactly where to make these cuts. So here we have, this will be the right arm of the broadside as it's constructed. And it's the right arm, right thigh pad, right shoulder, although the shoulders are symmetrical, doesn't matter so much, from the different kits. So we're going to make a cut. It's actually easier to do this from the inside. It's a nice way to line it up is you want to cut between this round on the shoulder and this little inset piece here. You want to just make a cut clean across there, straight across, as clean as you can get it. You will be able to clean it up a little bit with a hobby knife after you saw it if you need to, but the less angle you put on it when you're sawing it, the less arm you'll lose when you're trying to trim that down later. And then for the shoulder, we'll make a few cuts here. We'll cut right up next to the elbow, this little piece right here, and then we'll cut again just above it, just to cut it off there. So this little tiny piece between the upper arm and the elbow on the Crisis will actually not be used. And then here again on the upper arm of the Crisis, we'll make another cut, and we'll cut just here. You'll see this little corner. You want to cut across the top, and just a fraction of a millimeter from the edge, straight down. And again, as straight as you can get it. You can trim it a bit when you're done. I always have to. If you have better tools than I do for cutting a 90-degree angle, share, please. But take our saw, cut across there neatly, and this will actually be a little tall for where we're going to attach it here, so we'll end up trimming just a little bit off the bottom, and you can eyeball that as you're matching them up. And then this piece will, no modifications necessary at this moment. We'll trim it down a little bit with our hobby knife as we're fitting things together, but overall, leave this intact. Over here I do have one that I've already cut up, the left arm. And as you can see, we have the upper arm here, another piece of the upper arm from the Crisis, the elbow that's been cut out, and then this forearm, or this thigh pad with this knee, which is going to go around this, and then this forearm, which is going to fit right in here quite neatly once we do some trimming. Forgot to put it in the initial tools and had it set aside until I got into this part, but as you're trying to do these flat edges for the different pieces that'll fit together, having one of these metal files with the nice flat file edge that doesn't want to focus on the camera, there we go. Actually quite handy, not necessary. You can probably use sandpaper if you have it, but you can just use your hobby knife and just very carefully shave it down, but I like using this sucker, so there you go. As we are putting together pieces of the forearm, being this thigh armor and the forearm, I find it best, again, lots of different ways you can pose it depending on how you want it, but I find it best to use this large carved out piece that would be the inside of the hip joint on the Crisis as the inside of the arm, and I like the armor to be on the outside of the arm as though it were sort of forearm shield, kind of external plating. Now, in theory, it would work that way, but I think this looks weird, so we'll put it there. It works well enough like that. You'll see this nice flat edge that will go on the leg that fits nicely up against the edge of the arm. Now, depending on how deep you want it to sit, you could have it sit all the way down against the inside of that thigh armor, but you have to do quite a bit of carving to get there. That's how I did my first one. I think I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap, let the armor come off of that forearm piece a little bit. I'm going to try to get the center of this knee joint, which will become the elbow, aligned with the center of this knee joint, aligned with the center line of the forearm. So it'll be a nice straight line between the elbow joint and the center of the forearm all the way across. And then once you have this all put together and glued, you probably want to do a little bit of trimming here on these pieces to get them to line up nicely with the arm. You may end up trimming down the arm a bit to fit more neatly in there, but once you have those pieces together, it's easier to make those modifications. Trying to line them up and make those modifications over and over, it's a little tricky with the different angles and different lines. As for the upper arm, I have the shoulder from the Crisis completely how I want it. It'll line up nicely there. I'll glue those together. That might do a little bit of work, and probably once it's all finished, we'll do a little bit of green stuff just to work into that crack, typical crack fill type stuff with the green stuff. Now, this elbow piece will be glued on just like this, and it'll actually need to be trimmed down a little bit to match the angles on the what used to be the upper arm from the Crisis. So again, that part's going to be easier to fit down and to trim also the sides of this so that it will fit inside the knee joint here from the thigh armor as part of the elbow. That piece is really hard to hold to carve it. It's got lots of little jagged edges, kind of hurts. So we'll glue it to this, let the glue settle, let that be nice and firm before we begin whittling down this elbow to fit inside that knee to make our full elbow joint. Now we have our upper arms and lower arms fully assembled and glued for both sides, and the next step will be to shape them down a little here. So this little bit where it's sticking out, I'm going to shape that down. And again, do it however you like. Maybe you want them to be larger there, you want to add something to it, whatever. But for me, I'm going to cut these down to match this angle on that armor, straight across. And this gap here, I'll actually be filling in with green stuff later. Again, don't have to, but I like it to be one big solid piece. Just fill in that gap. The only major thing we need to do here is trim this piece up a little bit. Now, we're going to have to cut off essentially the sides, these rounded pieces here, because we don't need this external elbow joint. What we need is for this middle round piece to fit neatly in here, and right now it is, pick that up, it is far too wide. You'll see it's got big bumps on both sides. Those will come off, and that'll just fit neatly inside there. Actually, go it this way, but it'll fit neatly inside there. We'll take that flat edge off of that one side, and we will carve that down, and it'll fit neatly in there, and it'll give us our nice posable elbow joint. Two things we're going to run into when we're trying to put these elbow joints together. Once you've got it down a bit where it'll fit inside, so you have cut off both sides there, there is a very small ledge right where these pieces stick out. And I've already started to carve it down here, but you're going to want to carve that down a bit so that it doesn't catch on the inner part of your elbow joint when you try to slide it in there. You can see it better in this one. I haven't done this one yet. You can see those raised edges just a little bit, just enough to stop you from getting the elbow joint all the way in. Now, likewise, on the other side, on the upper arm, you're going to find that this ledge right here, and on the back side, if it's not flush, which mine is not, I put them inside on purpose a little bit, is going to stop you from getting the outside of that elbow joint up around those. So you'll have to carve this around where that circle is, just to be able to fit these together quite nicely. And so you'll end up just carving a little bit out of the inside of the forearm piece here, just shaving it down just a little bit to fit that one in, and you'll start to carve down this one. You make a nice little round divot there for that piece to fit on as well, and that will give you your nice posable broadside arms. Here I have one arm completed as far as assembling and carving everything goes. You'll see I smooth these down to be about the same angle as the forearm here, right in the middle. I've trimmed that inner elbow down so that we can get a nice 90-degree out of there. Trimmed down that bit of a collar there to match the much smaller crisis arm. Overall, just little things, little details. Made that little box a complete box rather than just a U shape right there in the middle. Also from that crisis arm. So it's going to need a little cleanup. I've got a little bit of that poster putty, that mounting putty, in that joint just to hold together right now. You see, very posable. I left all the little gears on the back of the elbow, as you can see, that come with the crisis. Depending on your pose, you might want to take one or two of them off. Maybe you don't like them at all, take them all off, up to you. I keep them on the back for reasons I like them. Okay. Here we are with our arms fully assembled. They have been shaped down, lots of little details added. You'll see here. Alright, get it in focus. Alright, now we've trimmed those arms down a bit. We'll do a little bit more cleanup. I'm going to wait until we finish the last step, which is to add some green stuff. We'll fill in this hole here in the thigh armor, and this hole here from the shoulder, not the one we're going to put the joint on later, but the one we added. So, and a little crack touch-up, things like that. So, a little bit of touch-up with some green stuff, a little bit of cleanup, and we should have ourselves two completed and very posable broadside arms. And here we have our finished product. Two highly posable arms that fits very well with the broadside size and give you a lot of posability, a lot of range of motion, lots of good stuff. Some accessories you can throw on here. The Cold Star hands fit perfectly on these. If you want to give it some fists and such, have some spares laying around. They work quite nicely. Also, you can add these tiny little kneecap armors from the Crisis suit onto your elbow joint. Right now I just have it tacked, but you can easily add them there. Make a neat little armor piece. I am going to end up attaching plasma rifles, but you could magnetize, do whatever weapons you like, maybe make some crazy missile stuff. And finally, you can still fit that shoulder armor on as you normally would. Just to give you an example here, the first time I built these, right here, because I wanted a very different look for my heavy rail rifle. I wanted to hold it, and it's not quite the complete model itself yet. Little issues with alignment, but do have these arms posed quite nicely. And it allowed me the range of motion to get out in front of this armor piece, get the rifle lined up across, balanced quite nicely. So next tutorial, I'm going to finish off this broadside with a turret for the heavy rail rifle, where the plasma turret is on this one. So, like, subscribe, all that kind of good YouTube stuff, and I will get you guys some more tutorials. Let me know what you think. You like it, you don't like it, what else do you want to see, biggest pet peeves, towel related, of course, and I'll get something going for you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope this helped. Good night.